Okay, so I feel like reading. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna finish off the Here on Earth by Alice Hoffman. Okay, so I just gotta figure out where we left off. Hold on. So if you don't know where we left off, you can go back into one of my videos. I think it's Read With Me, and we read the first. Well, we're still in chapter 1 actually. So far um we were let me see, I gotta freaking figure out her name. She was in the car and she was explaining the environment, her scenery through the car window on a car ride with her mother. Her name was March. No, March was the driver. So yeah, she was discussing the scenery when they was driving, and her daughter was in the back seat, and she was explaining kind of about how her daughter was um she was explaining her daughter's personality. I'm guessing that Gwen was March's daughter. Yeah. Okay, so the sooner we get out of here, the better. Gwen informs her mother she's dying for a cigarette, but she'll simply have to control herself, not exactly what she's best at. March steps on the gas, but the wheels spin them deeper and deeper into the mud. There's no longer any hope of going forward. In fact, they won't be going anywhere at all without the help of the tow truck. So the car had broke down. Damn it, March says. Gwen doesn't like the way her mother sounds. She doesn't like the whole situation. It's easy to see why tourists doesn't usually come here and why the maps in the visitor center are yellow with age. In these woods, autumn brings our no. In these woods, autumn brings out ghosts. You may not see them or hear them, but they're with you all the same. You'll know they're present when your heart begins to beat too fast. You'll know when you look over your shoulder, and the fact that there's no one directly behind you doesn't convince you that someone's not there. Gwen reaches over and locks her door. There aren't even any streetlights out here, not for miles. If you didn't know where you are going, you'd be lost. But of course, Gwen's mother knows the way she grew up here. She must know. Now, what do we do? Gwen asked. My throat felt dry. Hold on, I'm gonna give. Okay. Excuse me. That's not water. But remember, we used to grow up always thinking that water was blue when it's actually clear. Like, could you really imagine this color being water? That'd be something. Okay. Um. Okay, so now what do we do? Gwen asks. March takes the key from the ignition. Now she tells her daughter, "We walk through the woods." Gwen's froggy voice cracks into into paying her daughter no mind. March gets out of the car and finds herself shin deep in water. Sloshing through the puddle, she goes around to the trunk of her suitcase in Gwen's backpack. She'd forgotten how cold and sweet the air is in October. She'd forgotten, to me, October always smells like Halloween. Like, that's just for me. It just smells like Halloween, the whole fall season. Um, She's forgotten how disturbing real darkness can be. It's impossible to see more than a foot in front of your own face, and the rain is the kind that smacks at you as if you've been a bad girl and hadn't been punished enough. I'm not walking through this. Gwen has gotten out, but she's bundled inside the car. The mascara she applied so carefully was while she waited for her mother behind the funeral parlor is now running down her face in thick black lines. March isn't going to argue. She knows that doesn't work. And in all honesty, simple logic never convinced her of anything when she was Gwen's age. People tried to tell her she better behave, she better take it slow and think twice, but she never heard a single word they said. March grabs her suitcase, then locks up the car. You decide what you want to do. If you want to wait here, okay, I'm walking to the house. All right, allows. All right, Gwen allows. Instead of said, oh, so I don't know. Instead of saying, oh, all right, Gwen says, they said, all right, Gwen allows. Fine, I'll go with you. That's different. Um, if that's what you want. Gwen gets her backpack. No way is she staying out here all alone. Not for a minute, not for $1,000,000. Now she understands why her mother, and that's another thing. That's all I was gonna say. You it just takes me back to where like I used to sit in class and the teacher used to ask me did I want to read. I never really want to read out loud. Like it's like I read perfectly, to myself. But when it's out loud, it's just like the story is just different because like when you read to yourself, you can sit there and you can visualize. You can take all the time you want reading, but like when you're asked to read out loud, it's kind of hard for you to get a visualization um of what the story is about. You can imagine, you can just take your time and it all comes together in your head. But when you're just speaking it out loud and then boom, they ask you all these questions stuff, it's like, hold on, I gotta go back and reread what I read because I didn't fully grasp what was going on in the book because you're so focused on how it's coming out, rather than how it's going in. Um, some things just get okay. So you're focused on how it's coming out rather than fully interpreting it, within. So yeah, maybe books aren't meant to be read out loud. Honestly, I don't think they are, because I feel like a book is only someone's mind. Like this is someone's mind I'm reading right now. That's how I see a book. They put so much time and energy mentally into it's like gathering these pieces of your mind or dissecting your mind or just You know how you go on paper and you write, in your diary, your journaling. Just think of yourself doing that, and you have so much that you need to get off. So this person, I feel like this person is just venting an idea of how they wanted something to turn out for themselves, or how you don't have something your way, so therefore you can basically give yourself an imagery of how you wanted to be. It's like letting go. So you didn't get to experience this for yourself, so you go ahead and let this idea go so that it lives on, but not with you. You let go of this idea. So yeah, okay, so back to the story. Now her face. Okay, so the mascara was going down her face. Her and her mom has to now walk home because the car broke down. That's one thing I didn't know they was going home. I thought they was going somewhere else. So the car broke down, and now Gwen doesn't want to walk with her mom. um, so her mom said, "Fine, I'll go by myself," and they started walk. They started to walk. Um, March grabs her suitcase and locks up the car. You decide what you want to do. If you want to wait here, okay, I'm walking to the house. All right, Gwen allows. Fine, I'll go with you if that's what you want. Gwen gets her backpack. No way is she staying out here all alone, not for $1,000,000. Now she's now she understands why her mother as well as her father also grew up here, right down the road. Never come back. The reason they're finally visiting is actually pretty horrible. If Gwen allowed herself, she'd have a min, a mini breakdown right now. She's shivering so badly that her teeth are actually chattering. Wait till she calls Minnie Gilbert, her best friend, to tell her my teeth are chattering like a skeleton hanging on a rope, and I couldn't even have a goddamn cigarette because there I was right next to my mother, all for a funeral of some old woman I'm not even related to. Are you okay? March asks as they make their way down the road. Perfect, Gwen says. Thursday is the day of the funeral, and Gwen may faint, especially if she wears her tight black dress, which is scrunched into a ball at the very bottom of her backpack. Judith 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 Dale was a housekeeper who raised March, whose mother had died when March was was when March was little more than a baby. So Judith Dale was the housekeeper that raised Gwen's mother, March. Um, and although Miss Dale came, was that the one that passed? That's whose funeral they're going to. I think that's the one that they're going to the funeral for. But we'll see as we go further, I'm guessing. And although Miss Dale um came out to visit California once a year, Gwen can no longer picture her face. Maybe she's blocking it out. Maybe she doesn't want to think about nasty things like death and getting old and being stuck in a horrible place like this with one's mother. Do you think the casket will be open? Gwen said asked. Finally she rate Finally the rain is easing up. I doubt it, March says. After all, Judith Dale was one of the most private people March has ever known. You could tell Judith anything. You could pour out your soul, and it wouldn't be until much later, perhaps even years afterwards, that you didn't realize she never told you anything about herself and that you didn't even know what her favorite dessert was, let alone who she loved and what she believed in. Now that the rain is ending, they can hear things in the woods, mice probably, raccoons, come to drink from the puddles. Mom, Gwen says when something flies overhead. It's nothing, March assures her, an owl. Not long ago, there were mountain lions roaming these woods and black bears who came down to the orchards, orchards. I always get stuck at that word pronunciation, you know. Mm, My yeah. Um, to eat their fill. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, in the comments. To eat their fill in October, there were moose who would charge anything that moved. Even when March was a girl, the sky was still so clear. Children in the town were often disappointed to discover they couldn't reach up and pull the stars right out of the sky. Are we almost there? Gwen asked. Her idea of exercise, after all, is to ride on the back of someone's Honda. It is now dusk, that odd and unreliable hour when you see things which doesn't exist, at least not in present time. It is almost possible for March to catch sight of the letter her brother Alan left beside those sugar maples. Okay, so now we know that okay, so I'm thinking March is Gwen, but March is the mother. So Alan is March's brother, Gwen's uncle. They're going to a funeral of the babysitter of when March was a little girl. So yeah. Um I guess as they're heading to the she's explaining what's going on as they're heading to the house. Um Gwen got afraid and said something flew over her head, and her mom March was telling her no, it's nothing. Maybe it's just an owl or something like that. So they still haven't made it to the house. It is now dusk, that odd and reliable hour when you see things which doesn't exist, at least not in the present time. So it must be, yeah, it's getting, I guess it's getting dark out. It is almost possible for Marsh to catch sight of the letter her brother Alan left beside the sugar maples. Okay, so they must be getting close to home. That dark shape in the woods may be the bucket Judith Dale used to collect the blueberries, and there by the stone. So they're coming back to the place where she grew up. So maybe it's not her house, maybe it's a house that they're visiting, like how you go on a resort and you go to a cabin, like your old family cabin that's been in your family, and inheritance and stuff like that. Maybe that's what's going on. um that dark shape in the woods, so she's yeah, the dark shape in the woods may be the bucket Judith Dale used to collect the blueberries, and there by the stone wall is the boy March once loved. Unless she is very much mistaken, he has begun to follow her. If she slows down, he'll be beside her. If she's not careful, he'll stay for good. Why are you running? Gwen complains. She's out of breath, trying her best to keep up with her mother. I'm not running, March insists. All the same, she gives her daughter a list of reasons to hurry. Call for the rental car to be told. Phone Richard and let him know his worries were for nothing. They're fine and have arrived in one place. Contact the judge to set up a time when they can go over estate. Call Ken Helm, who's always done odd jobs for the family, and have him check out the house to see if repairs are needed. Surely there are squirrels in the attic, and there always were at this time of the year. Gwen's good boots are caked with mud and she's freezing. I can see why you and Dad never come back here. It's disgusting. March's shoulders hurt from carrying her suitcase, or maybe it's just tension in her neck. The old dirt road is all uphill. Probably she should have taken Route 22 and made a left at what people in town call the Devil's Corner. If Richard hadn't been in the middle of a turn and had come with her, she might have gone that way. But she's not really a face to peace. She's not ready to face that piece of road with only Gwen for company. Not yet. She had told both Richard and herself that the past is the past. What happened once doesn't matter anymore. But if this were true, would she feel as though someone had just run an ice cube down her skin in a straight line? I think I see the house, announces. Ken Helm, the handyman, was the one who found Miss Dale. He knocked at the door after delivering the bricks needed to repair the chimney early on Monday evening, when the sky was the color of a velvet ribbon falling over the hills. At first, he thought no one was home, but then the wind had come up and pushed the door open, and there Judith was in the chair by the fireplace, no longer with us. March's father's old father and partner, Bill Justice, known throughout the Commonwealth as the judge, told March all of this when he phoned the next morning. At least there were no hospital stays, no plan, no heroic measures, and yet this information brings March no comfort, especially because she believes that Bill Justice, who has been an attorney for 50 years and a judge for 30 of those years, was covering the mouthpiece of his telephone in an attempt to conceal the fact that he was crying. I was about to say, dang, he 80, but she said 30 for 50 of those years. That's definitely a chimney. Gwen squints against the darkness. Gwen squints against the darkness. I see it now, and there's a gate. On the plane ride here, March had fallen asleep. Something she dreads was when traveling, since she's always loggy and disoriented after napping. In her dream, she saw her father, who has been dead for nearly 25 years, in March's dream. Henry Murray was standing in the doorway to their living room, wearing the sweater that March had loved best, the brown wool one with deep pockets, where he always kept peppermint drops. He and Bill Justice were the only lawyers in the village, and although they were partners, they participated in the most friendly of feuds concerning which was the more popular. Excuse me. Do you want Murray or do you want justice? Bill used to joke, and maybe he had to since Henry Murray was everyone's favorite. Children would beg for a peppermint drop each time he walked into town, and they followed behind asking for a second and a third when he died suddenly while working late at this office. Every boy and girl in the village reported smelling mint in the night air, as if something sweet had passed them right by. Oh wow. So it was probably his spirit. He liked mint, so the aroma or his body deteriorated, you know, and he ate so many peppermints, eventually that aroma came off. No, I'm just playing, but that's kind of idea. But he liked mint, so maybe his spirit is on them. That was just me brainstorming now. Every time she thinks of her father, March experiences a sharp pain in her side. It is astounding to consider how many losses I started thinking about what I just said. Like, if I could, I'm probably gonna edit that out this video. Yeah, because I did not mean to say that. Mm, I don't know. Every time she thinks of her father, March experiences a sharp pain in her side. It is astounding to consider how many losses of a single individual can sustain. Richard has no family left at all except for March and Gwen, and March has little more, only her brother. Alan, from whom she so estranged. Okay, I need to watch these comments because I'm like it's all running together and it's kind of not making sense to me. So her brother Alan, from whom she so estranged, it no longer makes sense to consider him blood, which is doubly true for Alan's son, a boy she's never even met. So this is it, Gwen says. They are standing at the gate. March puts her suitcase down. It takes a good it takes a good look. I can't believe you ever lived here, Gwen said. Yikes. In the dark, the house looked tilted and old. The section that burned down, the original kitchen and the dining areas, has been rebuilt as a modest addition. March lived in the house until she was 21. Hers is the window above the porch roof, the one with the black shutters, which need to be set back into their hinges. That was where she spent most of her time in those last years waiting at the window. Is she surprised to find that she's thinking of Hollis now that she sees that window once again? She was only 17 when he left, but she already been in love with him for most of her life. That terrible winter when he went away, when the sky was always the color of ashes and the chestnut tree in front of the yard was encased in ice. She began to find white strands threaded through her hair. Tonight, in the same yard where the chestnut tree still grows, there is something jostling the quince bushes. Gwen moves as close to her mother as she can get. She's ice inside out. Mom, if Gwen sounds frightened, that's because she is. Then this is not what she expected when she agreed to come east with her mother for the funeral. She figured she'd miss a week of school. She planned to sleep until noon every day and eat nothing but candy bars and cereal, full out enjoying the break from real life. Now, on this dark night, she feels much too far from home. Who is this woman beside her, with the long dark hair and the sad conscience? Gwen, who's brave enough or hardly foolhardy enough to argue with security guards when she's picked up from shoplifting at the Palo Alto shopping center is actually shaking now. What has she let herself in? What has she let herself in for? How possible would it be to turn and run for home? Okay, so this person, this must be an old book because they're using different expressions. Like this expression, what has she let herself in for? What has she let herself in for? What has she got herself into? How possible would it be to turn and run for home? That's what I was just explaining today, though. Those times where you get yourself in a situation and you just really want to just, turn around and do it all over again. Turn around and do that moment all over again. Turn around and start that day all over again, but you can't, you know? How possible would it be to turn and run for home now? Um, Look, Marge says to her daughter, it's only some rabbits. Sure enough, several brown rabbits are beneath the hedge of quince. The largest of them come out as if to do battle with March and Gwen, as if the entire hill belonged to a creature small enough to fit in a large sunbonnet or a cast iron pot. Scat, March tells the rabbit, go on. When it doesn't move, she rattles her suitcase and off goes the rabbit into the woods. See, she tells her daughter, no problem. But Gwen is far from convinced about the place. Should we go in? She is whispering, her voice a raspy, breakable thing. We'll have to sleep on the porch if we don't. I feel like my voice is like hers right now. There's something going on right here. Like I can't. This juice ain't doing. I'm about to have to get some water because my freaking throat is. It ain't. It's not giving my original. Yeah, my original sound. How I usually sound. Um, where am I at? Oh, she said, should we go in? She is whispering, her voice a raspy, breakable thing. We'll have to sleep on the porch if we don't. They both have to laugh. They both have to laugh at this. It's not too dark to see that the gutters have sloshed torrents of water over the porch. Not a place you want to spend the night unless you were a centipede or some other creepy crawly. Reaches beneath the mailbox, and there is a extra key wedged underneath as always. You definitely live here, Gwen says. March used to see the same sky every morning. She used to take these porch steps two at a time, always in a hurry, always wanting more. From where they stand, March can see Judith's garden, and instantly she feels comforted. In spite of everything, some things remain constant. The garden is exactly as it was when March was a child. The spearmint still thrives in windy bunches, and the scallions, with their sharp, bitter scent, haven't been the least affected by the chilly weather. The last of the season's cabbages are nestled against the fence, and they always were in October, in neat, tidy rows like well-behaved green toads. Maybe she'll regret coming back, but right now there is nowhere on earth that could feel more familiar. There in the lower yard, March can make out the orchard, her favorite place of all. The apple trees are twisted like little old men, their backs turned on the wind. March used to climb these trees every afternoon at this time of the year, grabbing the Macintoshes, me, Mac, Macintoshes, Macintoshes, and Macombs. I don't even know what that is. What is a Macintosh? I'm about to see real fast because if I know what it is, that'll help me figure out how to pronounce it. Okay, so I was going to. Uh, okay, so let me see. A Macintosh, and we gonna have Google pronounce this too, just in case I'm saying it wrong. Macintoshes. Grabbing at Macintoshes and Macoons. So maybe it's some type of fruit or something on the trees. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like a peach. That's what it is. It looks like a peach. It's some type of peach. Um, let's see. Pronounce. Pronunciation. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it up. If it
Macintosh,
M-
Macintosh,
Macintosh.
Macintosh.
Okay, that's how you say it. Okay, Macintosh. Okay, so March used to climb these trees every afternoon at this time of the year, grabbing at Macintosh and Macoons, turning the stem of each apple exactly 8 times as she recited the alphabet the way girls do to learn the identity of their own true love, making sure to pull the twig freely only after she reached the first letter of his name. Aw, like having a crush. So just like you will go walking and you pull the the sunflower, the petals from the dandelion. He loves me, he loves me not, he loves me, he loves me not. So instead of that, she twisted the stem of the apple by every letter. By the out She's twisted the stem of the apple um to that specific name of her crushes. And she said her crush name was um oh, she didn't say his name. She just said she twisted it 8 times in alphabetical order of the first letter of her crush's name. Um so chapter 2. He arrived like oh here it goes. He arrived like a bundle of mail on the gray, windy day. March remembers it perfectly well. It was a Saturday of her and her father had been away for nearly a week at a conference in Boston. For much of that time, March had been slightly ill, with a low-grade fever and sniffles, and Miss Dale had kept her supplied with orange juice and mint tea. March had woken late that day, something she rarely did at the age of 11, when it seemed that the whole world was right out in front of her, waiting and ready for her alone. On that Saturday, March's brother Alan, normally normally the late sleeper in the family, was already in the kitchen drinking coffee when March traipsed, traipsed. I'm not about to keep looking up all these words. Traipsed in. So when March barged in, searching for breakfast, Alan, who was 10 years old, then March had graduated from Boston University when he hadn't done well. He'd registered and audited a few courses of Derry Law School, still hoping to follow his father in his profession, something he would never manage to do. We've got a boy, Alan said. No, we don't. Even at 11, March knew that her brother was a um a Burgart and was careful not to believe much of what he said. Really? Alan insisted. He had just begun dating Julie, the girl he would let her, uh, the girl he would later marry, and was more good natured than usual. He didn't call Marcia an idiot or a moron the way he usually did and referred to her. by her given name, Marshalin, for spite. Dad brought him back from Boston. He found him wandering the streets or something. Yeah, right, Marquez said. Liar. I want to make a bet, Alan said. How about your allowance for the rest of your life? Judith Dale came in with a basket of laundry she had taken off the line. She wore her hair caught up in those days and she favored slacks and cardigans along the peace and quiet. People can't just get People can't just get people, Mark said. Can they? She always turned to Judith to back her up, but now Judith shrugged. She was ha- she was hazy about details, and she admitted she had made up the guest bedroom with clean sheets and a quilt that was usually stored in the attic. March went to the windows, but she couldn't see anything. Alan came up behind her, eating a piece of buttered toast and flicking the crumbs from his chest. He's right there, Alan said, pointing toward the orchard. The orchard, and I think I said it right that time, the orchard. And true enough, there he was, just beyond the gate. He was 13 and skinny, with long dark hair that hadn't been washed for weeks. What a prize, Alan said with his usual disdain. The boy must have felt himself being watched because he suddenly turned and glared at the window. The clouds were thin and wispy that day, blown about by the wind. When March waved, the boy was surprised that he stood there blinking. March would have laughed at his discomfort if she realized all at once that she did not want to stop looking at him. Do we get to keep him forever? March said, since deep inside that it was better to whisper. God, I hope not, Alan said. Out in the orchard, the boy continued to stare at her. The grass hadn't yet been mowed that season, and all the daffodils were closed up tight to protect themselves from unpredictable weather. I'll take him, March volunteered. Get serious, Ellen had said. When he walked away, March stayed precisely where she was. I am serious, she said out loud. Although there was no longer anyone who could hear her, nearly 30 years later she can still recall the way those words felt in her mouth, how delicious they were, how absolutely sweet. From now on, he's mine. Everything she knows about him she learned from Judith Dale. He'd been an orphan in Boston, so poor he'd eaten nothing but crackers and whatever else he could steal. Few people could Few people would give him the time of day, let alone $1 for his supper. But March's kind-hearted father had brought him home, and that's all we know. They were sitting out on the porch on a fine blue day, filling up the bird feeders. Judith liked to hang from the chestnut tree. What about his parents, his religion? Does he have brothers and sisters? Are we sure he's 13? You are just nosy, Judith said. His name is Hollis, and he's here to stay. That's all you need to know. At first, the boy wouldn't eat dinner, not even when there were lamb chops and asparagus, then strawberries for dessert. He wouldn't look anyone in the eye, including Harry Murray, whom he'd obviously rejected for Mr. Murray was the one person to whom Hollis didn't talk back. He was certainly fresh enough to most people, but in an edgy, self-contained fashion. It was the way he looked at you that could make you nervous. It was everything he didn't say. After three after 3 months, Hollis was still avoiding them all. The less he revealed, the more interesting March found him. She kept wishing she'd run into him, but she didn't once when he was throwing rocks at some invisible target beyond the orchard. And again, when they all but crashed into each other in the hall one night en route to the bathroom. She was completely mute in his presence. Since March had already been a great one for talking, this behavior was particularly puzzling. Excuse me. Speak up, Judith. Dale would have to tell March whatever Hollis was would have to tell March whenever Hollis was near, but March couldn't oblige. She even took to drinking rainwater, which she had overheard Miss Hartwig, a matrone who worked in the school cafeteria, vow was a sure cure for her tongue tied child. That's how I feel. Tongue tied. That's how I feel right now. Still, Hollis and March had spoken, not even to ask the other for bread or butter at supper time. And then one day in the summer, she got her wish. It was July. March believes, or maybe the first week of August at any rate. It was brutally hot and had been for ages. March had been going barefoot, and the soles of her feet were black. She was pointing She was pouring a glass of Judith's mint iced tea for herself when she saw the dragonfly pass by overhead. It was larger than the ones you usually saw skimming over the flat surface of Olive Tree Lake, and so blue. March had to blink. She followed the dragonfly into the living room, where it perched on the drapes, and there was Hollis in her father's chair, reading one of Henry Murray's textbooks, a complicated treatise um, which concerned homicide. I want to catch that dragonfly, March said. Hollis stared at her. His eyes were absolutely black. Well, good for you, he finally answered. The dragonfly was beating its iridescent wings against the fabric of the drapes. You have to help me. March was amazed at how sure of herself she sounded. This reminds me. This is really taking me back to those days when I was reading in school. I'd be reading in school in my in language arts, and you remember they will mark down every word you said incorrectly. I had so many words I had said incorrectly on my test. When I was sitting there reading, those is times I remember. And like it's taking me back to elementary. That was in an elementary class, and they would sit there and they would mark down every word you said you pronounced wrong. I'm like, dang, give me a break. I might have pronounced it wrong, but I know what it means. Like for real. Um, put this back in the refrigerator. Put this back in the refrigerator. Put this right here. So you get that. So yeah, that's what I would usually say that. Like I know what it means. And that's the thing. That's why they say they be like a lot of people that write or a lot of people that's good with, writing their own books and stuff like that was never good in language arts. Just like you see like a person that's a singer or some type of artist, rapper, whatever, songwriter, they was never good in music class. I used to hear that all the time. And I'm like, they is right because I'd have wrote my own book and my book is amazing, you know. But I was never good in language arts, even though it was my favorite subject. It was my favorite subject, and that's why it tended to get me aggravated. So I always got aggravated when I got something wrong, or I wrote this essay, or I wrote this I wrote this speech or something for some type of relating to something that we had to do. So most times you know the teacher would be like, this you one okay, so I'm all over the place. I'm gonna slow down. Okay, so one time because I'm referring to language arts class, and then there was this other class I was in where I had to write a college essay, and I got so aggravated and mad at her because she kept telling me um I could like my spaces are wrong or my commas are in the wrong place, or she said something like I had to rearrange my whole essay to say exactly what she would recommend me say. And I'm like, no, because then I'm saying what you're saying. I'm not saying how I actually feel. Everything that I write, like all my essays and, my assignments in language arts is always very personal. It's like I reach really deep inside myself and put it all out there, and boom, I got a freaking C minus, or I got a freaking B minus, or I got a freaking, it never went down to an F. It never got that far, but a C is not good enough, because when I seen, I'm like, this is an A plus. This is good. This is one of a kind. And that's the thing, teachers just don't see that. It's like you put all your passion into it because you like that subject. Like I loved language arts. I loved anything that had to do with writing, but at the same time, it's like you can't mix personal with professional, not even in school, because you can put all your all into it, and you can take it so serious, and boom, all you get is a label, a letter B. That's all I'm worth. A letter C. That's wrong. A letter F. Now that's just that I don't deserve that. So if I was to do it all over again, if I was to go back to school, I would not give school my all. I would not take it personal. I would not put all my passion into my essays. I would not do none of that. I would just do it. And like now, like if I when I like how we get jobs and we just go in and do it and get up out of there. Boom, that's how I would treat school, because they don't appreciate that. They don't appreciate you expressing yourself and taking that time, because that's how I was. I was always passion driven, especially when it came to something that I really, really liked, and I loved language arts. Obviously, language arts did not love me back, but I loved it, and I'm just like, you know. So yeah, I just felt like school was like really, really unfair at times. Um, I was also in I used to write the school newspapers. And even now, I'm like, y'all hating. Y'all hating. I really felt like the teachers and the instructors, I feel like they was hating on me real, real hard. Cause I'm like, how you just telling me I can't do this, I can't do that, and it's a freaking school newspaper. This ain't good, this ain't that, but I'm freaking, I write poetry and I'm doing all this stuff. I'm a really good writer, and you're sitting here telling me it's not good. You got me messed up. You got me messed up. I just couldn't. I was like, nah, y'all hating. Something wrong with y'all. Something ain't, something ain't right. you know. Um. So let me see. Where did we leave off? You have to help me. March was amazed how. Oh, okay. So we read about the dragonfly. Tried to get away. It banged into the window glass, and then truly, is that where we was? Let me see. Nah, I done lost my freaking place. Hold on for a minute. We were on the part about the dragonfly flapping its wings. You have to help me. March was amazed at how sure of herself she sounded, and maybe Hollis was as well, because he put his book down and came over to help. In a panic, the dragonfly tried to get away. It banged into the window glass, and then, truly desperate, twisted itself into long strands of March's hair. Oh, that is so. And I couldn't even. No, it's now it's fun. It's tangled up in her hair. March could feel the dragonfly almost weightless. She could still feel her hair. Hollis had plucked it from her tangled hair. Hollis shoved the window open and let the dragonfly outside, where it disappeared immediately as if swallowed by the sky. Hmm. Now are you happy? Hollis asked March. He smelled quite strongly of soap since Miss Dale had insisted he take a shower each day, but also of some other scorching scent which March could later come to believe was anger. No, but I will be soon, March told him. She took him into the kitchen and got out the tubs of pistachio ice cream. They consumed a pint apiece, and by the time they were done, they were shivering even though the heat was as sweltering as ever. March can still remember how cold her tongue felt from all the ice cream. You better stay away from him, Alan warned March. He relayed he he relayed some ugly rumors that Hollis had murdered someone and had then been released into their father's custody, that his mother was a prostitute who'd been murdered herself, that March had been locked away, that few what few valuables she had, a silver comb left to her by her mother and a gold-plated charm bracelet. Since Hollis was most definitely a thief, March knew it was jealousy that drove her brother. So Alan warned March that he relayed some ugly rumors that Hollis was murdered. Oh, so I'm reading this. I'm like, hold on, this ain't making sense. Okay, so he warned March to um stay away from him because he spread rumors um that Hollis had murdered someone and had been released. You better stay away from Alan so much. He relayed some ugly rumors. So hold on, uh, ain't his name Hollis? Hollis was up, yeah. So he's talking about Hollis. He relayed rumors that he had murdered someone and had been released into their father's company. He um said that his mother was a prostitute who'd been murdered herself. He said that March had better lock away what few valuables. Oh, and then he Alan told March that she better lock away any few valuables that she had, a silver comb left to her, like the silver comb that's been left to her by her mother, and a gold plated charm bracelet, since Hollis was most definitely a thief. Marsh knew it was jealousy that drove her brother. So remember, Allen is March's brother. Um, Henry Murray introduced Hollis to his son. Thought I heard somebody at the beginning. Um, when Henry Murray introduced Hollis, and I'm thinking, who the heck is Henry? Oh, Henry is Hollis's father. Henry Murray introduced Hollis as his son. Alan Alan always turned pale. Alan had never gotten along with his father and had disappointed him in every way, and now he'd been replaced by someone who hadn't known what shampoo was or still didn't still didn't have the faintest idea of how to behave in company. At dinner parties, or on holidays, Hollis would sit there reading one of those miserable law texts, and he wouldn't answer when spoken to. The only people he paid any attention to were Henry, Murray, and March. Why don't you go? Why don't you go someplace where you're wanted? Alan asked Hollis. Why don't you shut up? Hollis said right back, and he didn't even bother to look at Alan, who was 8 years older and a full-grown man, despite his foolish ways. I'm trying to find a stopping point because I done got too. This video has gotten too long, and chapter 3 ain't until like three. Let me see, like for all these pages. So we are one, two, three, four, four and a half pages away from chapter 3. So I'm about to try to figure out a stop. So I'm gonna just stop right there. Um, we are stopping after we found out. So Hollis and March was getting close, and then her brother warned her to stay away from him because we just found out that Hollis had been spreading all these rumors that was untrue, and he's a thief. We found out, and now that's when Henry Hollis's father is coming into the picture. So yeah, we are going to stop there, and then so I'm gonna mark down this page right here so that we can continue from there next time I feel like reading. Let me just go ahead and know where I am. So yeah, next time I feel like reading, we can go ahead and continue on from here where we just been introduced to um Alan's father. Or no, Hollis's father. Hollis is the guy that spread all the rumors. Alright. I was supposed to use a pencil. I told him about it. So yeah, that's my reading for today. And I will see y'all next time here on Earth.